this. I have a beautiful pillow, cookie pillow, but I'm going to put that up. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm Sudha Jamthe, and this is Weekly WED at Business School of AI, my happy community of students. And thank you for those of you who have joined me here on Zoom. We're going to have a fun discussion. So Weekly WED is our global speaker series, and we host exactly at this time now for 5 years and 9 o'clock Pacific time. And I'm joining you here from Silicon Valley. And I see some of you coming from Pakistan, some of you coming from Europe. Thank you, everybody. Okay. And I'm expecting somebody from Nigeria to join also. And so Weekly WED, we do this on Zoom. And we have a community on Slack, and I will share the link here. And for those of you who are going to come back and watch this recording, our own video editor, Elam, will be making small clips so that it will save you time, so you can quickly get to the lessons. But the fun part is the interaction. You can get the best out of me by asking me questions. So those of you who are on the chat here, if you don't want to be in the recording or you don't want your voice to be included in the recording, stay off camera and you can chat. Or if you're okay with it, when we ask questions, you're welcome to join on camera. And by staying on or turning your cameras on and voice, you're giving me permission to do the recording, because I will not be able to do a edit of this, because this is streaming live on YouTube. That's where we get a recording to kind of, get you a nice edited lesson versions of this. Okay. So what are we doing here? First of all, Happy New Year. Happy New Year 2025. I believe this is going to be an amazing year, because personally for me, 2024 was a blur. I did a lot of travel, a lot of different things happening on the personal side and professional side. And so I'm very excited to see you all and do hosting, because I usually don't host Weekly WED. And welcome, Mananya. Thank you for joining. Welcome, Adam. Thank you for joining. Okay. So we closed out the year with a holiday learning plan. And if you remember, I was saying one important technology that you have to learn is fine-tuning. So I decided we'll pick up the year. So today's topic is fine-tuning of Gen AI, and fine-tuning our year and our learning plan. So the way I am going to do this is I put together a deck, and I'm going to share the deck for those of you who are on our follow-up email mailing list that we do right after Weekly WED tomorrow. But I'm going to go through the deck and show you. Let me go back. For those of you who are new, I'm a technology futurist and educator, and I teach in multiple different universities. I teach AI, autonomous vehicle, and multiple topics, but primarily I teach AI and Gen AI. And I have multiple courses that I'm producing on LinkedIn Learning. So you can find my AI courses there. Let me share my screen. Okay. You guys are able to see my deck properly? Fine-tuning AI in your new year? Yep. Okay. Okay. This is my background of the various worlds that I operate in. So I'm going to skip that too. And Business School of AI is my community, where if you are interested in continuing to learn from me, you can join Business School of AI. Okay. On LinkedIn. Yeah. So we're going to have a little revision of what is fine-tuning. And for those of you who are new, you're not going to miss out on what is fine-tuning. And my specialty is I teach everybody who codes, who doesn't code, who focuses on ethics, who are lawyers, all kinds of people. But bulk of my students are product managers or business people, data scientists, who are interested in building AI and products ethically in a very customer-centric way. So I'm going to be going deeper into the technology. So if you just want to know what is fine-tuning, give me a Python notebook. I can give you a Python notebook, but that's not what we're going to do here. This is about going deeper so that you have a fundamental understanding of the technology, so that you can use your creativity and do fun things with it. So the second thing we are going to focus on is why is it needed? Basically, what kind of things can you do with it? What is being done? What is possible, right? This is the fun discussion piece. And then the new piece is between the time we went off for the holidays and we came back, fine-tuning expanded. I mean, there's different parts of Gen AI technology that is expanding by the day, but fine-tuning, as I mentioned, is a very core part of making Gen AI, making large language models work for you, for your customers. So types of fine-tuning is what the final piece that we will focus on. Okay, so for those of you who are here, you can give your name, say where you're joining from. You will learn and connect and do some fun projects with the community, with others here, because my students here are professionals, innovators out from industry. So don't think you just come to learn from me and you just need to connect with me. So feel free to connect, feel free to share your LinkedIn in here, right, in the chat. And if you have questions, I just saw something. It's just a nice smile and hello and okay. Okay, awesome. Okay, so first question, what is fine tuning? Anybody wants to tell me what is fine tuning? And you can add it in the chat. I expect you to answer this because I did this in the holiday learning plan. What is fine tuning? And again, nobody who's watching this recording is going to hear you or see it if you just put things in the chat. So there's no bad answer. Don't worry about it. What is fine tuning? Okay. So Gen AI is this big bucket of AI where AI goes past historic data, historic learning, extrapolates its learning and generates images, content, code, all kinds of things, right? And large language models are nothing but neural networks, right? And they have a combination of unsupervised learning, which is learning everything from the internet as foundation model. And then there is a supervised learning component by which we get large language models, right? To become better in a specific domain, okay? So basically, thank you for that. That's the application of fine tuning, right? So what fine tuning can do? What fine tuning in a technical sense is, the large language model is nothing but a neural network. It has many, many millions of layers of learning, and it starts from the training data, which is the world of data, because they took all kinds of internet data without permission, right? And it learns, and that's the training data, and then it goes to the next layer and it says, okay, I learned how about these words, I learned the relation of these words next to other words. So it's basically learning words and their relationships and seeing patterns so that it can chat with us. It can do machine translation for us, right? It can communicate. It looks like it's communicating. It is still making a prediction. All AI is doing is making a prediction. So when we start chatting with ChatGPT or we chat with Gemini, it is actually saying, this is the word. What is the next word? So it goes back into its memory and it is guessing or predicting the next word. And it is doing an amazing job because it's continuing to talk and it feels like you're talking with a human, and it doesn't sound clunky. It doesn't forget the context, and it continues the conversation. That's what LLMs are doing. To do that, it's nothing but unsupervised learning from with a big, large neural network where it has got the entire internet, lots of books, lots of content, lots and lots of content. That's why it's called large language model. And it has multiple parameters by which it says, okay, what should I focus in my learning? What should I retain and pass it to the next layer of the neural network? And what can I drop? What is not important? And that's how it is propagating its learning. And that's the foundation model. So the last layer of the neural network is what we are interacting with. So when you're chatting with ChatGPT and you're asking something, or you see your autocorrect and you say, this is A, and it tries to guess what it is from what you would be saying, and all that is coming from the last layer of the neural network. So fine tuning is nothing except changing the last layer, retraining the last layer of the neural network. Think about it. There have been amazing, brilliant people and lots of processing power pumped in to create these foundation models to what is called as pre-training. So they've pre-trained the model. And then when we do fine tuning, we are doing nothing except supervised learning. What is supervised learning? Can somebody tell me what is supervised learning? Okay, retraining a generic LLM model with a specific corpus of data for the needed context. Thank you, Ananya. This is very precisely written, like a proper definition of fine tuning. So we are retraining a neural network, the generic neural network or the foundation model. But how are we retraining? We are not retraining the whole model. We are retraining only the last layer of the neural network. So when it has got its weights and biases and it says, okay, now I can answer your question, I can do autocorrect, I can guess the next word, I can finish this image and give you a picture of a dog, all that is only in the last layer that we are interacting with, right? And so we are changing the last layer. And as you said, with a new set of data, because we are doing, how do you train it? All training has to be done by data. So think about it. In traditional AI, when we were doing machine learning models, we would give a data set and say, okay, do a classification model. So it will do training in the classification with the data set. And it'd say, okay, and people who have taken my class, I do this. This is my favorite example of, of classification of dogs versus mops. And I'll throw in some dogs that look like mops. And how does it do that? It takes the data set and it says, I see pattern and I'm organizing. This is a dog, this is a mop. And it keeps doing that, right? It's exactly doing the same thing, but it is organizing with a lot of different words. And so we are going, when we find that the model is not performing well, what do? When you do machine learning models and you say the model has got only 57% accuracy, what do? In traditional AI, when you're training AI and the model performance is low, what do? You didn't know I was going to go my quiz all the way back to machine learning, didn't you? Think about it, guys. Can I give you a clue? All AI is trained by data. So what do you do when the model is not performing well? You're just creating a classification model, dog versus mop. Yes, you add more data, correct. So data augmentation is the technical term to add more data, right? So you either create synthetic data. Nowadays, we do that with Gen AI, or you find more data. So you train the model. And if you go back to the beginnings of learning AI is trained by data. You take training data and you feed it into a statistical model. It's organizing a pattern in its memory, and it says, I've been trained. It is a training AI. So you test it, right? Who tests it? Whoever is building the AI, the engineers, the data scientists, test the AI and say, somebody like Fatima, who's a brilliant engineer and working on AI and learning masters in AI, she's going to say, okay, this is not good enough. I need very high performance. And so I need it to, do better. So I'm going to give it more data. Or somebody like Ananya, who's a product manager, would now see this from the engineer and say, can this do this for my customer? And let us see whether it can do some finance prediction for housing prices. It's not good enough. Let me get you more data. The difference between what an engineer would do in the training mode is throw more data to retrain the model. Retrain the model means you reset the bias, the weights and biases, start again and rerun the model. And it builds again and again, right? After a certain point, when it's brought to a product manager or a business person internally, it's not yet gone to your customer, what Ananya would do will say, this data, it needs more data, but I'm going to do feature engineering. I'm going to get you better data because it does not understand women. So I need more data, which has women and their finance trading behavior. And let me give you more data. So now you're going to train on top of the existing layer. You're not going to reset and start again. So that you are retraining. So there's a difference between retraining or you're putting the AI into a learning cycle. So the difference, it's very important for us to understand this, because when you build machine learning models, you're just like, let's retrain again. And we do a lot of retraining again and again and again because it's a Python notebook and you just run it. And so that is the foundation from where we are starting. AI is trained by data. You start with data, feed into a stats model, does its classification, and then it makes its prediction. How do you test? You just give a test set of data as test data, and you say, what is the performance? And its accuracy is low. Let's throw more data. You retrain it. You bring it to the next level of your training pipeline. From training data, you give it to internally to your teams, to other people in the company, to your product manager. And they would give you more data, test it, and give you more data. And you put the AI into a learning cycle and you improve the AI. At some point, you feel it's ready for the customer. You send it to the customer. It becomes inference AI. So now coming to the world of Gen AI, we don't get to do this reset and let's start training, because the whole concept of Gen AI and large language models is it is trained with very, very, very large volume of data, and it takes a lot of GPU processing power. And handful of companies or universities have access to this, and they're building foundation models. There are countries like Nigeria is building their own LLM, and Singapore built their own LLM. So there are countries who are saying, hey, we are going to build our own LLM with our own data. So it understands the nuances of our language, our culture baked into the data. And so handful of people are building this model that is the foundation model. It is exactly the same what we did with machine learning and deep learning. It's a neural network, and it has many, many layers of learning. But it is very expensive to say, I'm going to throw this foundation model and I'm going to go build my own model because ChatGPT is giving me incorrect answers, or it is being rude because it is trained from Reddit data. And so what we are living with now is we take the foundation model and we say, this is what we've got. Now we need to make it smarter. That's the beauty of AI, because AI can continuously learn and learn and learn, and there is no end to the learning. That is why people who talk about the AGI, or the AI that would be like, generic AI that can solve all problems, or an autonomous vehicle that can run without a human in all kinds of terrains, in all kinds of weather patterns at level 5, all of this, the belief for even believing in that comes from the ability of the AI to learn and learn and learn. So that's what we are betting on. So we are being given foundation model when we get any kind of GPT 3.5, which is which was powering ChatGPT originally, and GPT 4, and Gemini models, the Llama models, or Minstrel. A lot of them, all of them are doing the same thing, right? So we get that. So now we come back to fine tuning. The power we have in our hands is to do fine tuning by taking a foundation model that's given to us, and we just train the last layer. So what do? We take a data set, exactly like what we were doing with machine learning or other things, and it's called supervised learning. Why is it called supervised learning? Any takers? We are going to do supervised learning with a data set to train the last layer of the neural network, which is the large language models, to behave the way we want. That's what is fine tuning. It is labeled data. Fatima is going to go out with a big A today. she's rocking it. Yes. So basically, you have a data set, and it's a simple question and answer, or a name, or like, if you're doing this for language translation, you say hello in English, and you say hola in Spanish, right? Or salve in Italian. So you basically have a pair like that, right? Or it's a question and an answer, and it's a bunch of, and it is labeled, right? Labeled data is supervised learning. Supervised learning is we know the answer already. We've given it. We have labeled, this is right, this is wrong. This is the right answer. This is the recommendation you should be giving when this question is asked. And so that's the input and the output. And we give all that. And now we feed it and we say, let's train the last layer of the model, and let us make the model do what? Get smarter. Now, that is what is fine-tuning. Okay. Before I move on, so I just wanted to establish what is fine-tuning, what exactly are we doing, right? And I want you to have a very solid understanding of we are doing supervised learning with label data. It's not brain surgery. You can create that data set sitting now. If you just say, I want to do fine-tuning, let me do this. And you're going to have a question and answer, or you're going to have a name and a pair, right? Labeled data set. And it's just a document. And now I gave away my answer by like the way I was explaining this. For my next question, what do you need? What do you need to do fine tuning? So, if you want to fine tune a model, and I'm going back to Ananya's definition. Fine tuning is retraining a generic LLM model with a specific corpus of data for the needed context. So, maybe I should take a step back. Let's talk about needed context first. What kind of things do you do why do you do fine tuning? What kind of things do is possible with fine tuning? You have an LLM and you can chat with it, right? Already. And it might give you, Reddit answers. Why do you need fine tuning? What kind of things can you do to the existing LLM by training its last layer to do better for you? What kind of things is possible? Why is fine tuning needed, or what do you use fine tuning for? Is my question. Improve its performance. Yes. So by the time they give us, yes, you can say improve its performance, but improve its performance in specific context, right? It is not just because it's trained with a lot of data. So when you're improving its performance, what are you improving? So it's already trained with data, tons of data from the internet. So if you say, I'm going to use Llama 3, which is open source. So the first thing you need to do fine tuning is you need a LLM, because you're fine tuning LLM. And if you take the LLM and you say, I want it to do a specific task. Okay, that's beautiful. Fatima is still on a roll today. So the LLM, so you might want it to do a specific task, like you want it to do a Q&A. So when you use ChatGPT is an application. It's not an LLM. LLM, the foundation LLM for ChatGPT is GPT 3.5. And it's a model and it makes prediction, right? You want to build an application on top of it, you want to build a chatbot on top of it, then you need it to have certain behaviors. And having a Q&A format is also training it with, I ask a question, you give me an answer, right? To do that, you're actually training it. So you could make it do a specific task. I want to know more from all of you. What kind of things do you do with fine tuning? And last, in the holiday learning plan, I did give you some examples. And I think Ananya was saying in her definition, in the needed context, what is that context? So what kind of things do people do fine tuning for? To do a specific task like a Q&A that Fatima was saying. Give me more examples. What kind of things do you do with fine tuning? I'm waiting, guys. So basically you're taking and I gave you this clue that it is learned from Reddit data. It's learned from all kinds of information from the internet, which means it's not perfect. Not just perfect, it's rude. It's racist. It is mean. You cannot go build a chatbot to talk to your customer, not knowing whether it is going to be professional or not. So the number one use case of why you would train a LLM and with fine tuning is for it to behave decently and for it to just not have rude words. So you don't want it to say certain words. And so if the customer is asking something, so you can omit data that might have been considered offensive. That's beautiful. Thank you, Deepika. Okay, reward. I'm coming to the reward. Fatima is like way ahead of me today. So the first thing is you want to manage the tone of the model, the chatbot, the application you're building. You want it to have a certain tone. You want it to have like a funny tone. You want it to not have offensive language. You want it to be decent. You want it to be professional, all that, right? So you remember they had this thing called a chat, like a GPT store, and you could just do a drag and drop and create a GPT. It was kind of limited functionality, but everybody was kind of like, this is like App Store, and they were running towards this 1 year back. And one of the capabilities was decide the tone. And you say it's funny, it's angry, all kinds of things. So yeah, like a business tone. So if you're doing financial recommendation for women, then you're going to use the data by which it learns better on the data that it was not trained. So the first thing is the tone. Second thing is you might want it to learn language that it did not get from the internet that is relevant to your industry. So for a specific domain, would retraining the last layer be enough? How would one decide? So the only thing that we are capable of doing is retrain the last layer. We cannot retrain more layers because we don't have the capability. The way we are given the LLM, so all the LLMs like Gemini and all the OpenAI's models and Llama and everything, Cohere, all of that, everybody who's giving is built that thing. It's an inference. They've done the training, pre-training, and they think it's good enough for the world to see it. So what we are getting is essentially an inference AI. We are not getting the training AI. But because we know it's a neural network that has many, many layers in its memory, by doing fine-tuning, we are essentially training the last layer. That's what we are doing. It is not a training AI that is given to us. So the question was, would retraining the last layer be enough? And how would one decide? So the answer is you have no ability to retrain more than the last layer. We are interacting with an inference AI. So they took large data from the internet, built the foundation model, and became a neural network. They must have thrown more and more data and retrained it till they said, this is great performance, let's give it to the world, right? And what they decided as performance, they might have tested with any training data that seemed to be okay. Now, when you go and say, I'm going to build a chatbot that is going to be for a travel site, and I want customers to be able to come and book air travel and hotel booking and things like that, and they're going to come chat about it. And it may not know the language that is the right kind of language. When you say, I want to book a room, I want to change my room, things like that, right? In a normal context, what are we talking about? And in the hotel reservation system, what does that mean, right? And there might be policies in your company that it needs to know. And if it is 24 hours before you're checking in, you cannot change the room, you cannot cancel the room. So the language that it needs to know is not in the training from internet data. So does that answer your question? That we are dealing with an inference AI. So the only ability we have is to retrain the last layer, which is why it's called fine tuning. It's not even just called training. Sometimes they call it training, but it's fine tuning. Okay. And so I heard two answers so far on why LLM, what kind of things you can do with it. One is you do it for tone. So it behaves and doesn't throw foul language at your customer or us. The second thing is that it can be for a specific domain, like Ananya was giving about, finance advice for women. So it doesn't know enough of that data because the data out in the internet is biased. And so you might want to give that, or it talks in a certain domain language for, financial advice. It understands the compliance related to all that. And we already established that the way you fine tune it is you're running a supervised learning model on using a data set, a supervised labeled data set. You can create it or you can find one from the internet based on what you're going for. Okay, so we have talked about what is fine tuning. what does it exactly do under the hood, and what kind of things you can do. There is one more thing you can do. 3 areas of application. One is setting the tone, another is teaching it domain knowledge, and there's a third one. And I gave a little clue already. What's the third thing that you could do? Why you see fine tuning is being done? And Deepika should know this because she has been working with me on a project related to this particular topic. I didn't say I won't put anybody on the spot. Any takers? Okay, let me give you a clue. Go here. It's a company which has AI models. What is their specialty? Go here for all is the clue. Now tell me what's the third thing you do with fine tuning? People don't think of this as fine tuning. That is why you're not just getting it. Otherwise, all your answers have been amazing. You're brilliant. You can Google the answer. You can talk to ChatGPT. I don't care. I'm not offended. I just want you to think. So fine tuning is taking an existing LLM, which is fully tuned and provided to us as inference, right? And we are training the last layer of the neural network, rearranging its understanding of what is important and what is not important. That's what the weights and biases are doing. We are rearranging the weights using supervised learning, using a simple data set of labeled data. And things we can do is you can change it from not saying offensive things, setting the right tone. We can teach domain-specific knowledge, so it can help, be a chatbot for finance, be a chatbot for travel. It can be a chatbot for a hospital. It can be a chatbot in real estate. Chatbot is just one of the most famous applications, right? So those are the 2 things. The third area is it can do machine translation. Remember the example I gave when we were talking about the supervised data set? You say hello in the data set. On one side, you say hello. The other side, you say hola. And you can use, a set like that and build a whole data set and teach the LLM to learn Spanish. And so that's how we do it for machine translation for various languages. They originally built LLM with internet data and took predominantly English data out there from the internet because they tried to scour the net for public forums and information like Reddit and stuff, right? So that's why it speaks English, and it speaks bad English sometimes. And then they said, okay, now we need to teach it to learn French. Now we need to learn it to make it learn Hausa. We need it to learn, what else? I'm just blanking out on language, Hindi. So Spanish and, various other languages, right? And the way they did that is they made a data set and said, this is what you say in English. This is what you say in this other language. It's simple. And they built a data set and they said, now let's go fine tune it. So every machine translation that you're seeing is being done like this. We did a project in my bio. You saw Global South in AI. That is the project that I end up doing towards the end of the year is how you see the output. And we train people from various countries where their languages are not included in mainstream technology translation and help them build machine translation. And this is precisely what we do. We help them build a data set and pick a LLM and do fine tuning. And different LLMs are specialized for different things based on how they have been built. So there is one model called T5, which is well suited. That's from Google. It's well suited for language translation compared to Gemini, which does general purpose search. Okay. So any questions? So we've established what is fine tuning. We've established what is possible with fine tuning and gone deeper into how exactly fine tuning is done at a theoretical level, right? The hardest part is finding great data set. Yes, for machine translation, like all for everything that you're doing fine tuning, the data set has to be built. And so there has been a huge effort to build data set for local languages that people have come and said, oh, my language is not included. Let me build a data set. So then they actually build translation data sets, and then the model gets trained. So that's a work in progress. There are 7,100 and something languages in the world. And how many languages do you think the average LLM understands? How many languages does GPT understand? Any takers? Any guess? No, it's not 120. GPT, I think under 200 is right for most of them. GPT understands 99 languages, like ChatGPT understands 99 languages. Google Translate understands 120 languages. And how many do you think Zoom understands? Zoom actually has an ability to transcribe a video like the one we are talking right now, and then it can give you a summary, and I get the summary in English, but it can give me summary in multiple other languages. How many languages do you think is included in that? You're just guessing, guys. You can guess a number fast. 20. I think it's more than 20. I think it's in the 60 range, if I remember right, because they keep adding more languages. So we talked about fine tuning. 50 is close, Fatima, it's 60. So we talked about fine tuning and getting the data set to do this. So let's take a step back. I just gave you this example of Zoom. So why is Zoom offering this for 50 languages, 60 languages? If you were working in Zoom and your job is to add support for machine summary, right? So there is an AI that is listening to this video, and everything that is spoken, it does not take the chat or anything. So there's like a little privacy component there. But everything that I'm speaking, or if anybody asks a question, anything that comes by voice, it transcribes that. So there's an AI that does the transcription, right? Voice to text, that exists. And that gives me a summary, right? Zoom has built that. Zoom is improving it, and I think they're doing text to speech to text. Yes, thank you. And they have been doing a nice job, because I saw the very early versions and they've improved greatly. So when they get a summary, and those of you who are here, if you're interested, I'm happy to share the summary that I get today. And you can see exactly how Zoom does that. In the beginning, it used to call everybody he. It doesn't matter whoever was speaking. And or if we mention a name, and that it'll say that person is a he. And now they've kind of tamed that down, and now it understands, or it does, he and she when it suits it, right? It doesn't do a they yet. But the language part. So if you're working in Zoom and your job is to get support for more and more languages for this transcription, what do you need to do? How would you do that? So Zoom already has an ability to do speech to text. So if you are inside Zoom, yes, you need data. So if you are inside Zoom, they will tell you, we have this other team who does transcription service, and they do a speech to text, and that's available. And anytime there is a meeting, if the customer turns on the summary feature, which is at the bottom of the screen, by default, I've set it up to do a summary, and I can stop summary right now at the bottom if I want. So the product people have taken care of all that. So now when the summary feature is on, it takes the voice from any meeting that's happening, and it gives a summary, right? So when it does the summary, it's in English. So that's the capability that they have. It's like the LLMs that speak English. Now, when they're saying, okay, now we can provide you this transcription in Vietnamese. We can give this in Mandarin, or we can give this in Spanish. So they've added more languages. So imagine you're joining the Zoom team, and your job is to get support for world languages in Zoom. What do you need to do? I see Fatima saying more data. Tell me what you would do. What is more data? So you are working in Zoom, you're going to add machine translation for your language. I don't know if it understands Urdu. Maybe your job is to add Urdu support for the transcription. What would you do? What would be your starting point? So you are in Zoom and you're going to add more language support to their voice to text transcription service that exists in English. How do you do that? Come on, guys, there's no wrong answer, and you have been amazing. All your answers have been perfect. In fact, you're way ahead of me in most cases. How do you think Zoom adds support for multiple languages? Exactly like what Deepika has been doing. Deepika can go do this job at Zoom. She's been working on machine translation for Global South languages. She can go work in any company to do that. All you do is you're going to do fine tuning of that AI that does the speech to text and fine tune it to learn more languages. Remember, we said you can change it for tone, you can change the LLM for learning different domains, and you can do it for machine translation. Zoom does not touch our tone or anything else, right? Whatever tone I'm talking is just going to take the language and it's going to do translation. It's not adding any domain knowledge or anything. It doesn't interfere. Whether I'm sitting here and talking about technology, somebody might be having a meeting about finance, somebody might be having a meeting about, social services or childcare. It doesn't care. It just says, I hear this word, I'm translating it to English, right? I'm transcribing it to English. Now, when it is doing a translation, what they're doing is they are going to translate to other languages. So I am not sure whether they are doing fine tuning to more and more languages or whether they are using some kind of API from Google or anybody else who's doing translation already. And they're saying, okay, let's use Google's translation API. And then they can translate this to more languages. Do we need to provide both Spanish or the other language paragraphs and the English translation for it? Yes, very good question, Ananya. Yes. So if you're going to start from scratch and you're going to do machine translation, that you're fine-tuning the last layer, it's English-speaking LLM, and it speaks only English. So you have to have like a paragraph word pairs of the English and Spanish or English and Urdu. And that's how you do it. That's how you build the data set, and then you do the fine tuning, and then it will run, and it will now speak Spanish or whatever language that you're asking for. That's how machine translation is done. So I'm going into a different realm because I was talking about fine tuning. So to do fine tuning in Zoom, if you're sitting in Zoom and you want to add more and more language support, that's what you would do. You would do fine tuning of that AI transcription service to speak other languages. And it is possible, now I'm getting into the product realm, it is possible that you might have more, you might just be able to use an API from Google Translate and feed the transcription to it, and it will give you other languages. And it is possible. So as a product person, you're going to decide, am I going to build this native support? So we are still going through this hypothetical situation that you're in Zoom and you're going to get language translation for lots of other languages. And you can decide, you have to decide as a product person, you might do a build versus buy decision. And you can say, I can build internally, and do I have the resources for it? Do I have the support for it to actually get a data set and train for more languages? what other languages are my customers using, where Zoom is everywhere in the world. And so you say, okay, I need to add support for 7,000 more languages. 60 languages won't cut it. And we're leaving business opportunity and not serving our customers. So why don't I, build fine tuning for so many languages? Or it might be a game of speed. You will not get to enough languages. So you might just say, why don't I buy an API like Google Translate services and run this and let it translate for me? So what happens if you end up using somebody else's translation services? You're just using a product. You don't have enough control over the tone. You don't have control over, the limitation of that. If the performance of that is not so great. Like, for example, Google actually says they have support for 100 languages, and there is no language left behind. NOLL. No language left behind. NLLB. That Facebook came up with, saying we do this for 200 languages. But if you get to languages that are not commonly used in the Western world, then the performance is very bad. So, for example, my mother tongue is a language called Tamil, and all of them claim to know Tamil or chat with Tamil. But if you get deeper, it kind of gives you even Google Translate does not give a great translation, but it's better than the others. And so, because their training data must be limited, the model might not perform so greatly, right? And there are other techniques. I'm talking about fine-tuning with the supervised data set. So you have a name value pair or a Q&A pair of languages. There are other technologies by which they are training the LLM to learn from one language to another without giving actual huge, large language data set. I'm not going there. Okay. But so to close out the Zoom topic, you could use an existing API that from some other company which is doing machine translation, or you could create fine-tuning with your own data set. Okay. What if I use multiple ways to learn? Real-time transcriptions, meeting interpretation, etc. Each of it, you have to have the AI learn that, right? You could have what they're doing is real-time transcription or close to real-time transcription. If you're having an interpreter, you could add. So essentially, you're adding to the data set. See, think of this as AI is basically taking input and output. That's the thing, what you said about supervised learning, right? So when it is doing a transcription, it is taking input of my voice and it is giving an output of text. Now, if you want an interpreter who is actually contributing to the right language translation, it's just one more data feed. So Fatima touched upon a very interesting topic, which is when we think about AI and training and its input and output, we theoretically, when we are learning, we oversimplify it, thinking it is just one data feed and one output, right? One input and one output. But in reality, there are multiple data sources. And in fact, today's LLM are all multimodal. What is multimodal? Quiz time. What is multimodal? All models today are multimodal. What does that mean? Come on, guys, you know this one. It supports multiple modes. What does that mean? Anybody? Yes, it can do multiple modes of input output. It can take text, it can take images, it can take PDFs, it can take voice. Yes, like Notebook LM. And output also. Thank you, Ananya. So you can generate, you can prompt Gemini, you can go to Google search, and there's a little research button. It's called experiments. If you click that, you can see the latest in Gemini, and you can say, draw me a dog in English, and it will draw a dog. You can take voice as input and you can chat, right? It can take all kinds of modalities of input and produce all kinds of modalities of output. That is what a multimodal model is. So the training we are talking, the fine tuning we are talking, the data set we are talking is not going to be so linear that you give some text data and it gets out. Text data is one kind of data set. And Fatima said, if the training, if the translation, you could have somebody has an interpreter who knows the language, who would provide the right correction, and then they could be actually adding to it. I remember I once gave a talk to a visiting group of Chinese professionals, and they spoke only Mandarin, and or they were more comfortable with Mandarin. So we had an interpreter. So I was talking in English. They gave me a headpiece, and I would talk in English. They were wearing a headset too, and they could hear everything in Mandarin. And then they would say something, and it was not giving the real-time translation for me. We had an interpreter who did the translation. So I would say something and they would laugh, and then it will take me a minute to say, why are they laughing? And then the interpreter would like give me the reply back of what they were saying. And if an AI is listening to this and is going to transcribe that meeting, it's not just my talk or somebody saying something in Mandarin. It is the combination, including what the interpreter said, that it has to transcribe. So it's multiple data sets. And so Deepika said like Notebook LM, because where we are going with the LLMs is that they are multimodal, but the reality in industry is you get multiple data sources, and you input multiple data sources and teach the AI to produce that summary for you. So Notebook LM is an example of that. I had actually shown Notebook LM at my Sudha Live, I believe in November or October, when I did the last Sudha Live. I actually showed you a Notebook LM, so you can find that in my YouTube in the archive. Again, if somebody is specifically interested in it, I'm happy to give you that, and you can chat with me in the Slack, and I will give you the follow up of everything that I'm promising here. Okay. Okay, so we covered what is LLM, what is fine tuning, how does it work behind the scene, what do you need a data set, what does the data set look like, things like that. So now I'm going to give you the last topic, which is the types of fine tuning. So all that we have been discussing today is the fine tuning that existed, that we were aware of before we went off for the holidays, and that is using a supervised data set, right? Let me share my screen, sorry. Okay, so I've actually gone specific in this order, right? What do we need for fine tuning? This we already discussed last year. I've got a bunch of resources in here. And for those of you who are technical, non-technical, I've got enough of the resources here. In fact, in my LinkedIn Learning on Gen AI, I have a lesson on fine tuning. I'm happy to give access to that if somebody wants that too, right? All this we have done, machine translation and all that stuff, right? So now it comes to the type of fine tuning. All that we have been discussing is supervised fine tuning. So there is another concept called RAG. So you will hear in the past, we used to say, should we be doing RAG or fine tuning? And RAG is called retrieval augmented generation. And that is about giving an extra data set. So the AI, the LLM had learned from the internet data. Now you want it to learn your company information, and you give an extra data set. That is RAG. You take an extra data set as a name value pair, and then you do the fine tuning of the last layer. Is that fine tuning, right? There's a difference between fine tuning and RAG. Okay, question. Do you have an understanding of the difference between RAG and fine tuning, guys? Yes or no? Does everybody know the difference between RAG and fine tuning? So, and we have I think we have done sessions on RAG. If somebody is interested in that, I'm happy to bring in more sessions on RAG and the latest in RAG. All we've been talking is fine tuning, which is retraining the last layer of the LLM to adjust for tone, for learning for domain language, the domain specific language for specific industry, or to learn some new language, right? It's adjusting what it already knows. RAG is about giving an extra data set. So you have a LLM and it says, it doesn't know this at all about my customer behavior, and I have this data and I want the chatbot to understand that. And that is RAG. Okay. So earlier it used to be, should we do RAG? Should we do fine tuning? We'll do fine tuning if it is for tone or language or domain knowledge. We'll do RAG if it is for extra extra knowledge that we want to give for our own company information, right? Protected company information. And so one kind of fine tuning that has evolved is a combination of these two, of RAG and fine tuning. Okay. Let me get this out of this. I'm going to go back to the share mode here. So all that we've learned and discussed today is supervised fine-tuning with a supervised label data set like machine learning. A combination of RAG and fine-tuning was created in a research paper called retrieval augmented fine-tuning. And so that came out middle last year, but picked up towards the end of the year. And the newest thing that is from OpenAI is called reinforced fine-tuning. And I remember Fatima saying reward. So reinforced learning is giving a reward. So when the AI is learning, you say, here is what it is. It's almost like, grading it, right? And so you give it, you do fine-tuning, but you give it a reward. What happens in a reward is it actually works towards the reward. It says, okay, then I am supposed, this is the better way of doing it, and it will actually go towards the reward. So that is the newest thing. So if you give it supervised learning as a data set, it is just going to say, okay, if you ask me this, I'm going to give this, right? But when you do reinforced fine tuning, it will say, if you ask me this, I'll give you this, but let me refine it towards this goal. And it will do like a loop in terms of getting you the answer. It will not just do, just a name and reference. Does that make sense? So that's what is the reinforced fine tuning. It's the newest technique from OpenAI that is available as of this December. And I don't know if it is available in general GA for you to actually go use it. Okay, we are reaching the end of the hour, so I want to know if you have any last questions. Fine-tuning improve the RAG plus LLM. Yes, is the final output. Fine-tuning improves the LLM inference. Yes, exactly correct. Okay, so with that, I want to close out. And for those of you, I think when you got the email on this last night, you would have gotten our Slack link. You can actually join Slack and come and chat with each other. And if you want to continue on this topic, I would love your feedback, because one of the things I'm going to do now, I'm going to take a half an hour break, and then I'm meeting with some of you to plan for next year. So if any of you want to be included, Ananya, I tried to invite you. For some reason, I could not add you in the email invite. If you're interested, 10:30, I'm going to meet with a couple people from our regulars from Weekly Vet to plan the topics, the themes, and speakers for this year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plan ahead for 4 weeks, invite and plan so that it's on a theme instead of random topics. So I did try fine tuning today. I would like your feedback on what more you want, how much depth you want, how much hands-on you want to hear from an industry speaker, do you want a different topic, things like that. And all of this, setting the tone is part of ethics, right? Setting the right tone, adding inclusion for languages is all part of AI ethics, but people don't think of AI ethics that way. So I'm going to have a lot of focus on, teaching you AI, but with an ethical lens, or how to build responsible AI in the coming year. So I would like your feedback. If you want to be part of the team that is going to be volunteering to figure out the speakers and topics for join me at 10:30. You can say yes here, and I will add you to the invite, or we can talk to me in the Slack if you want. I will be sharing the Zoom there. And one of the things I am actually pondering is I have this video editor who is able to edit and make snippets, and with my guidance, to create lessons from Weekly Ved, from our past recordings. So I would like to offer something called Weekly Ved Pro, which is an upsell, which is a paid $29 per month plan. on top of weekly wed. So you will have weekly wed, Zoom, come do what you're doing with me today. Nothing is going to change. And I love this time with you. And I love our interaction. Hope you found value from this. But I want to see whether I can give you more. I don't want to restrict anything that I'm doing. But I want to see whether I can get LM to build some lesson plans with me so that, if you want to follow up, because a lot of people are constantly pinging me and saying, where is that lesson? I mentioned we have done lessons on RAG before. We've done other things, right? If you want a refresher on something, or if you want a short lesson, um, one video per week is extra is what you'll get, not a 1 hour video because you spend 1 hour with me, maybe like a 5 minutes, 10 minutes video. So give me feedback, what is valuable for you? And regardless of whatever you do, I would like to invite you to be part of my Slack community, interact and chat. And, we can go do something more and build interesting things from here. And I will be sharing the deck and resources from here. Whatever I promised here, referenced here, I will be putting it on the chat and also be sending out in the weekly web newsletter that I do as a follow-up. With that, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. And thank you, Fatima, for all your amazing, being an amazing student and all your answers today. I appreciate that. So, Fatima, if you want to be part of the 10:30 planning meeting, you're welcome. If it is late for your time zone, guys, don't worry. We will be meeting more often, but this is my first kickoff. So just let me know if you want to be part of this. And I'm happy to continue on. Okay. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.